Welcome to Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into retirement and lifestyle design that actually work. You don't have to settle for the same tired Wall Street advice. Break away from the herd and learn how to achieve the retirement lifestyle of your dreams. And now, here's your host, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, back on Personal Pension Radio. Thank you, as always, for being here. Just have an awesome audience, great support from both my clients and listeners all around the United States and around the world. We've got listeners that are all the way to the Philippines, all the way into just far off lands that I just can't imagine. I'll have to check with my accountant and find out if I have listeners in exotic locations, if I actually do an on-site trip where I'm going to go, let's say, to a foreign country, the Bahamas or the south of Spain or something, and to record my podcast and meet some of my listeners. Is that a tax-deductible trip? Gosh, I'll have to check on that. Hey, so you're back on Personal Pension Radio. Thank you, as always, for being here. Really appreciate all the support. Broadcasting live, I am from sunny Southern... Well, wait a minute. It's not sunny Southern California today. Something very strange is happening here in Southern California. We're not familiar with it. It is a bit odd. It is, cannot remember the last time that it actually happened. It's raining in Southern California. That's right, raining in Southern California. I'm sorry for those of you who are listening on the East Coast of the United States, just getting hammered by the weather and the floodwaters rising. We here in Southern California have the exact opposite. We are completely bone dry 99% of the time, so it's very odd. My wife and I actually sat out on the porch, the covered porch this morning, and enjoyed the rain. It's like a spectator activity for us when it actually rains here in Southern California. But I am broadcasting from my workshop studio, Personal Pension Radio studio here in my workshop, Norco, California, Horsetown, USA. So what is Personal Pension Radio all about? Well, bottom line, I am all about optimizing retirement income. I am known as the income engineer. And I'm here to tell you that maximum retirement income does not happen with a product. It absolutely cannot happen with a 401k by itself. Mutual funds are not the answer. Life insurance, not the answer. Annuities and real estate, stocks and bonds, all of these products and things by themselves cannot help you optimize your retirement income. You must have an integrated approach, a balanced approach that bring all of these things together. Hear me on that. It's so important. All of these different asset classes working together in the right balance. Life insurance, mutual funds, real estate, annuities, all of these things working in the right balance. That's where maximum retirement income comes from. This show, my goal is meant to give you hope for retirement. If you have had a conversation like the folks I'm going to share a story with you today, an actual listener question came in and turned into a very detailed conversation and a client engagement where we're actually working on a plan. But if you've had a similar situation where you've gone in and talked to an investment advisor and asked about retirement and found out that based on the old way of doing things, seriously, the old 30, 40-year-old advice from your typical Wall Street trained financial advisor can be a very disappointing conversation. And I am here to turn the light back on at the end of that retirement tunnel. I'm here to help you learn something different than the typical conventional wisdom. Now, I was educated by the Wall Street financial advisory machine. What I mean by that is that since the 401k and IRA were created back in 1978, and just for the record, stop and think about that. A lot of people listening to this show right now, and most people if you ask them when the IRA and 401k was created, A lot of people think it's been around for generations. Well, I'm here to tell you it has not. It's only been around since 1978, and it's only really been used since the early 80s when it started really to explode. So, since that time, Wall Street has had a massive amount of money in the form of IRA and 401k investments rolling in to the Wall Street coffers and investment coffers. So who do you think controls the marketing budget for Wall Street financial advisory machine? Of course, Wall Street, right? Who do you think teaches financial advisors the message to teach you, the general public? That's right, the Wall Street financial advisory machine. And I'm here to tell you that I was educated by that Wall Street financial advisory machine, and I was never correctly taught, I should say, to pay attention to what was behind the curtain, right? The answer to every single question, whether it be retirement or college savings or starting a business, the answer was invest more, diversify your investments, dollar cost average, etc. It was always about invest more. Seriously, you've heard me, if you listen to this show, I've told people that what I was taught was, for example, if you wanted to put a kid in college, you needed to invest more money in a 529 account. If you want to retire, you need to invest more money in your 401k. If you get a flat tire, you need to invest more money. If you lose your dog, you need to invest more money. The answer was always the same, right? But when we had the Great Recession, back a few years ago, it was a huge wake-up call. The education that I received was, I won't say that it wasn't right. It was excellent accumulation education, teaching people how to invest and accumulate more money. So it wasn't wrong. It just was half the story. It was half the story because I never received a solid education on the income side of that retirement journey. So most advisors today were educated by the same machine that taught me the messaging that goes on today. The advice was always incomplete, and like I said, it was always accumulation focused. It wasn't how do we draw income from all of this work that we've done saving and accumulating, right? That's the key. So my goal with this podcast is to bring those conversations together, to help you understand that accumulation is what you do on your way up the mountain, on your way to retirement. When you get there, you've got to have a distribution plan. And a distribution plan is very different than an accumulation plan, but they all have to tie together. How all of these assets, like I said earlier, mutual funds, life insurance, real estate, annuities, stocks, bonds, whatever it is, they all need to work in the right balance with each other for a distribution strategy to maximize your income. Now, before I forget, gosh, I get so excited as I get into these things, I forget I've got to make sure, I got to do my disclosure. I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I am a certified financial planner professional. But please, remember, don't act on things that you hear on this podcast that you think, oh, I should go do that or do this, right? I had someone, for example, let me take another sidetrack, heard me say in my intro that optimizing retirement income doesn't happen with a product, that you have to have the right balance between mutual funds and life insurance and real estate and annuities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I had someone actually ask me, well, I heard you say life insurance in your intro, so I thought I would go out and look into that. And then sure enough, I talked to somebody who said, yes, I should have life insurance. No. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say here in my first disclosure is that this conversation, this information that I bring to you is meant to inspire the conversation, not give you actionable advice. So please don't go out there and act on things that you've heard without going into some real serious detail and meeting with a qualified financial advisor who understands retirement income planning. And there's a very easy way to understand that, and I think you'll know later that you'll have a baseline in this story that I'm going to share with you later in the podcast. You'll have a baseline for knowing whether or not you're talking to a financial advisor who really understands retirement income planning, or are they just a classically trained accumulation expert? Okay, so let me finish that disclosure. Please don't act on things that you hear on this show. Use it as an opportunity, hopefully, to inspire you to call me, to go to personalpensionradio.com, get in touch with me, schedule your own one-on-one conversation, and go into the details of your situation before you act on anything. And especially, please, do not act on things that you hear from financial entertainers. Financial entertainers are people who are not licensed. They are not regulated. They basically just say whatever the heck they want. And unfortunately, some people take that as gospel and they act on it. And it can be, in many cases, I've heard, just horrible advice. So please, meet with a qualified financial advisor before you take action on any of these things. And I do have a bias. I would suggest a certified financial planner, even somebody that went so far as to title and trademark the name The Income Engineer might be a good idea, if you know anybody with that title. All right, let's go. Let's jump in. I want to get to these two segments here. My wonderful wife shared a fantastic link with me. It's kind of coming up on Halloween time here in 2016 when I'm recording this. So it was a kind of a fun article that she found from Fox News. So rather than saving this for closer to Halloween time, I figured I'll just plug it into the mix because I thought it made me smile. Well, kind of made me smile, but also made me, crinkle my eyebrows a little bit. So in segment 1 here, Watch Your Step, I just want to share more of a lighthearted conversation. This is a study, actually, that Fox News speaks of, a study done by Chapman University. So Chapman University is here in Southern California, actually pretty close by where I live. So, and interesting that Chapman University did this study. But the title of the article that references the study is "Forget Ghosts. Government corruption spooks people most." That's interesting. Government corruption spooks people most. All right. What does that mean? Well, it means that out of all the things that the Chapman University study asked, that government corruption was actually 41% response, that people said that they are afraid, that their top fear was the corruption of government officials. Now, this is right around election time coming up next month here in the United States. We've got presidential election time, so it does make sense with this election season that people's top fear might be government related, but how sad is that? That the top fear that people had was government corruption. And the second most stated fear was terrorist attack. 41%. That's sad. It's very sad. But here, very telling, and of course it goes right into my side of the world, the third item on the list was not having enough money. Nearly 40% of the people surveyed said their biggest fear was not having enough money. Okay? Now, some of the other highlights on this list of fears, because there was several financial-related fears. 39, almost let's call it 40%, not having enough money. 37.5% were worried and feared economic or financial collapse. And 33% feared high medical bills. Okay, so a number of these things that rounded out the top 20, and these were significant percentages of the people surveyed, were related to financial matters. Financial matters. So I'm going to, again, I want to focus on the client listener question section today, but I have to say, government corruption as a top fear right after that terrorist attack, and then not having enough money. 40% of the people surveyed worried about not having enough money. Now, you can do something about that. If you find yourself, as I went through those few things that are on this list, and I'll have a link to this in the show notes if you want to go ahead and take a look at this yourself. It's kind of the list has everything from government restrictions and this and that, and loved ones being seriously ill, tough and difficult situations that people fear. But if you want to take a look at the list, I'll have a link. What I really wanted to stress in this is that the answer to these fears, for those of you who might have a similar fear of not having enough money, not being able to retire, worried, wondering, there is an answer to that. You contact someone like myself and then find out what you are on track for now. Find out what your current path looks like for your retirement, for your finances, and the sooner you do that, the sooner you have an opportunity to change your world, to change your path. If you leave it to chance, if you just close the drawer on the financial matters because you don't want to look at it because you think it's going to depress you, well, I'm here to tell you that is going to be worse and worse and worse every year that you don't open that up and take action. So the sooner you contact someone like myself to find out what your retirement income path looks like and find out what you could do to change it, the better. Absolutely the best possible thing you can do if you are worried about not having enough money is to contact the income engineer and have your personal conversation started today. All right? So that's what I wanted to stress with this. Don't let those fears paralyze you into inaction. Take action today. You'll be glad you did. Absolutely glad you did. So now, I want to get to this segment here because I don't want to take 4 hours to go through it. I want to run through this as quickly as I can, but I want to give you enough detail to help you understand the situation. So this is a question that came in, and I might have to start a new segment called "Can I Retire?" Right? So this is a question that came in. It's said, "Can I retire at 55 in 2 years?" Now this is from a husband and wife couple, Paul and Katie. Names have been changed to protect me. Right? And of course, just keep things anonymous. But the question was pretty simple. They did give some details and information, and that really caught my eye. Can I retire at 55 in 2 years? That's a short runway and a young age now, if you consider where most people retire nowadays. So here's the thing. Unlike Dave Ramsey, I am not a financial entertainer. That means that I cannot answer this kind of question just on a 30-second or 1-minute soundbite. That means that I need a lot more information. So I contacted Paul and Katie to dive in deeper, to ask lots of questions, and spent over an hour, several hours. I maybe have even pushing 2+ hours. I'm trying to remember the timeline over the different conversations, to gather the details necessary to give a well-formulated strategy, right? That's the thing. This idea of taking a soundbite on the radio or TV and then handing out advice is so dangerous. So I'm not a financial entertainer. I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the best way to begin is with lots and lots of information and data. So here are the facts. Here are some of the pertinent facts, and I'm just going to roll through this. There is a lot of data here, but what I want you to understand is that there's a lot of data here, that if your financial professional, someone that you're talking to, is not going into this depth, is not going into this, and keep in mind, this is just scratching the surface. If they're not going into even this kind of depth when it comes to discussions around retirement income planning, then you may not be working with someone who really understands retirement income planning. So keep that in mind. So now, they are currently, He is 53. She is 55. Paul has been an accountant for years and years and years, and he is burned out. He's burned out. That the used to have he used to have a tax season, and then he could take a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a break. And over the last 5 or 10 years, the IRS rules changes as far as tax reporting. Basically, there's no more tax season anymore. It's just constant all year long. He doesn't really get a break. And he really just wants out. He wants to sell his accounting business, but he doesn't want to leave accounting completely. He wants to work part-time, and he wants to make, he expects easily to make, as a contract accountant, private accountant, somewhere around $50,000 to $60,000 a year. So I guess you'd call this more of a semi-retirement, right? Maybe this is a semi-retirement kind of thing. So when you look at that, sounds good, seems okay. So now, years and years of hard work and savings. Now, this couple, I have to tell you, I meet lots and lots of people. I have been impressed with how much these folks have been able to accumulate in the value of their business and the value of their real estate and investments. They've really been able to do an outstanding job. That means they have had to live their lifestyle consistently in such a way to be able to accumulate. Remember, the accumulation phase is prior to retirement. They've been able to accumulate a substantial amount of money. Now, if we projected it out a bit, that their account balance, including their business, investment accounts, 401k, etc., it's going to be about $1 million, and they actually own the commercial real estate that the accounting practice is in. So that's another $1 million value, okay? $1 million value. And the building pays about $30,000 a year in total income. That's the rent that comes in off this building. So they're looking at right about a $2 million total investments in real estate and assets at that 2-year mark, that runway to retirement, right? That was the question. Can they retire, right? Now, the retirement income goal, right? That's the big thing is, okay, so what lifestyle do you want to maintain at 55 years old? What's the income target, the goal that you're hoping for? Well, in their case, their goal was to have $140,000 a year. $140,000 a year in retirement income as a goal, okay? Now, the question, when I said splitting the difference, I said, okay, you're going to work, right? 50 to 60,000. Yeah, that's working part-time. Let's split the difference. And we used $55,000 that Paul would work part-time, okay? That means that if you want a total of $140,000, that we take out that $55,000. So that means that we need $85,000 a year from the investments. Okay, so this is from the investments, right? So $85,000 to make up that total of $140,000. Now keep in mind, they're not old enough for Social Security, and they're really not even old enough to be drawing money out of their 401k. So this is a plan that we have to keep in mind, that this is a specific situation for someone at 55 years old. Okay. Now, the original idea before talking with me, the income engineer, was to keep the commercial building. So they were gonna keep the commercial building. They were gonna sell the accounting business and such, and they were gonna keep that commercial building and use the $30,000 as income. Now I got to take a walk through this just to make sure that I don't miss this detail for you. So this is just one piece of detail that, again, you got to look for this in the conversations that you're having with financial advisors so that you can use this as a baseline as to whether or not you're talking to somebody who truly specializes in income planning. Okay? So we've got a building, let's say it's worth $1 million. So $30,000 on that is, of course, 3% return. But that is a gross return, not a yucky ew kind of, but a gross return before expenses and potential problems. So my question was, what if the building needs an air conditioner? $15,000. What if the building had a major plumbing problem? $30,000, right? What if the tenant comes on hard times and can't pay the rent, right? The net rate of return, the net after expenses rate of return on the commercial building could become a negative number very quick, right? So assuming that you keep the building and get $30,000 a year from it, that means that the $1 million left has to yield $55,000. So remember, we had $2 million. So if we're going to get $30,000 from the building. So what I did is I first gave him a little food for thought on the building. Like, that building, it sounds cool to own real estate, but real estate is risky, especially if you only own one rental property, whether that's a big commercial building or a rental house. It can be very risky. So with that said, let's assume first that that's the plan. If they keep the building and everything works out perfectly, now the building is $1 million of their $2 million. That means the other $1 million in, say, investments, et cetera, and the sale of the business, et cetera, that has to give off $55,000 to make up the $85,000 that they need. Remember, they had a $140,000 goal, and he's going to work and earn about $55,000 a year. They're going to get $30,000 off the building, so that means they need about $55,000 off the other $1 million. So, of course, $55,000 on $1 million is a 5.5%, pay attention to the word, draw. Notice I did not say a 5.5% return, because when you get into an income environment, now we're not talking about rate of return. We're talking about the draw that you're pulling from that account. And we don't have a solid guarantee in the investment world that you get a 5.5% rate of return every year, but you might need to draw 5.5%. So that's what he would need. Paul and Katie would need 5.5% off this $1 million, right? Now, how safe is that? At 55 years old, how safe is a 5.5% draw? Well, if you know me and you've listened to this show, you should be screaming at the top of your lungs like, no, that is not safe. At 55 years old, that is not safe. Well, here's what happened. Before they met me, Paul and Katie had asked their investment advisor if they could get 5.5% on the $1 million, right? They had asked, could they get somewhere around that? Now, to be clear, they did not know what the exact number was, but the investment advisor they talked to, who worked at a major brokerage house that will go unnamed, but let's just say major brokerage house, that person said, yeah, I can get 5.5%. Sure, no problem. You'll be fine, right? Yeah, no problem. Well, thankfully, Paul and Katie heard my show and called for a second opinion. Okay, so now, first of all, the financial advisor at this major brokerage firm was completely wrong. Okay, completely wrong. So wrong, in fact, his own company published material that said at age 60, a 4% income rate was aggressive. Notice that. A 4% income rate was aggressive at age 60. So can you imagine at 55 taking a 5.5% draw? if 4% at 60, according to their own company information, was aggressive, a 5.5% was very aggressive, risky even. So I went a step further. And I taught them why. I helped them understand why a 5.5% draw rate with an investment-only plan, notice that, investment-only plan was extremely risky. So to do that, I assumed that they were still where they are in their investment world and they never met me. They don't understand income planning. They just do the typical Wall Street advice, and we're going to have investments only. So because of the uncertainty around how long people will live and the ups and downs of the market, the Wall Street community uses a computer simulator to figure out what are the probabilities that someone might actually run out of money, right? Doesn't sound like a very exciting proposition, but that's what they do, okay? They use a retirement income calculator, but really what it is a probability analysis tool. Now, you can run this yourself, just so you know. I mean, one of my favorite, it's a simple program to use, is the Vanguard Nest Egg Calculator. Vanguard Nest Egg Calculator. You can Google search that and you can plug in your data. It's pretty easy to get to. So here's what I did is I helped them understand that the Monte Carlo simulation is what the investment community uses to figure out the probabilities of success or failure with an income plan under an investment-only model where all you have is investments with risk. Okay, so what I did is I plugged that in at age 55 and said, if they had this $1 million and they tried to take out $55,000 a year or a 5.5% draw, the Monte Carlo simulation runs 5,000 different calculations. It basically says if you had this income plan, what would happen in these 5,000 different variations? Good years and bad years and start here's and stop there's and ups and downs. And it says, here's the chances of success. So it came back and said at that age, and if we tried to run the plan for 30 years. Now, notice this. I only ran it for 30 years. Let me ask you a question in the audience. Is it possible nowadays for a husband and wife who are healthy, for one of them to live to be 90 more, 95 years old, right? So at 55 years old, is it possible that he could go to 85 or even 90? Yes. So what I did, though, is I only ran it at a 30-year timeline. Just so you understand, if I ran it out at 35 years, the numbers would be different, worse even. So here's what happened on the retirement nest egg calculator, the Monte Carlo simulator. By the way, just a side note, I think it is so funny that Vanguard calls their Monte Carlo simulator a retirement nest egg calculator. That sounds so cute and benign, right? It sounds so nice and friendly. What do you think of when you hear Monte Carlo simulator or Monte Carlo? What are you thinking when you hear Monte Carlo? Most people, I ask that question, say gambling, casinos, right? Risk. That's the first thing that come to mind. And yet, the Vanguard calls theirs a retirement nest egg calculator. Isn't that just so cute, right? You don't think Monte Carlo, you don't think risk, but that's what this is. It's a risk analyzer. So let me get to it. I ran the Monte Carlo simulation for them, and here's what we came up with. At 55 years old and trying to run the simulator for 30 years, they had a 62% chance of success. Now, what is success? Success is having at least $1 left 30 years from now. At least $1 left 30 years out. Not having your $1 million left, but every scenario where they run the income calculation and the husband and wife are both dead and they had at least $1 left, that is counted as a success, right? Doesn't sound like it would be a success in most cases for most people, but that's what the Monte Carlo simulation considers to be a success. So 62% chance of success. That means, of course, there's a 38% chance of failure. So let me give you this as kind of a visual, right? This is one of the best ways it was ever explained to me. So let's all go on a trip together. We're going to fly from California to New York. California to New York. We're all going to get on the plane and we're all seated. We're all, checked in. The flight attendants and everybody have gotten us all. The doors are closed and the pilot comes on and says, "This is the pilot. We've done about 1,000 different calculations on our flight today, and we have found that we have a 62% chance of making it all the way to New York. We have a 38% chance that we'll land somewhere else. And we're just wanting to let you know we're feeling pretty good about 62%. Buckle in and let's get ready to go." How many of us would want to get off that plane? How many of us would want to get off a plane that had a 38% chance that it was not going to arrive at the destination that we hope for? Now, for the record, did I say the plane was going to crash? No. I said the plane might land somewhere that we didn't want to land. That means you end up getting something you didn't plan for. Okay, now, I did run the Monte Carlo simulation for Paul and Katie at a 4%. And you've heard it, the 4% rule. The 4% rule, right? Well, the 4% rule says take a 27% cut in your retirement income and your odds of success go up to 93%. That's all you've got to do under this kind of a calculation is take a 27% cut in your retirement lifestyle and your probability goes up from 62% to 93% chance of success. Wow, isn't that exciting? No, it's not exciting because if you remember what I said earlier, what if they live to be 95? That 93% chance of success could drop into the 80s and now we might still have a 10 or 15% chance of failure. Okay, so you understand that under the situation that they're talking to the typical financial advisor who really doesn't understand retirement income planning, this is the kind of conversation that people have with their financial advisor. Is this Monte Carlo income scenario risk profile planning? And that just doesn't work. So 5.5% draw was not going to work. Okay, so here's what I want to do, okay, because this is a very detailed solution. This is not a one thing fixes it all kind of a solution for Paul and Katie. My answer to the question, can I retire in 2 years, was yes. Okay, it was yes, because they are going to be semi-retired in 2 years. Truthfully, if he's still working as an accountant and making $55,000, $60,000 a year, he's semi-retired, but he's living life on his terms. He's happy, right? That's the goal. But they cannot do it with their current plan. So my answer is yes, I believe that there was a way to be able to get them ready for a 2-year retirement plan. Okay, but the current plan is going to, if they went there and they just never met me, the current plan would require them to work possibly another 10 years in order to retire under the Monte Carlo simulation, the typical investment world, the way that I was taught years ago. They would probably have to work and he would have to struggle through probably another 10 years to accumulate enough money to retire on the typical Wall Street retirement advice. Okay? So a lot of work went into designing an alternate strategy. So I'm not going to go into all these different details. But some of the new parts of the plan, right? Include new assets, for example, the plan to have life insurance assets, the plan to sell the building, right? Because the building is not a good income asset. There's a lot of risk in that building as an income asset. To have things like in the future, opportunities to use annuities for secure or more guaranteed income. Those things being added with the investment assets to create a balanced approach to their income draw using these multiple assets balanced correctly. That's going to be the key to a yes answer. Yes, they can do it in 2 years. They understand, they do understand that retiring young in their current situation exposes them to risk. Largely mortality risk, market risk. Adjustments might be needed. If things will happen along the way as young people, and remember, 55 is young. You're going to live 30 plus years if you're 55, right? So understanding that retiring young exposes them to some significant risks, so adjustments might be needed along the way. Is it a perfect scenario to go out at 55 under their current situation? Probably not perfect. I'll puff up my chest and say, as good as I am, it's not perfect, but an income strategy that we've put in place and put in motion for this couple is absolutely going to make the answer yes. And that's the exciting part about what I do. Because under their current plan, working with their current financial advisor, that financial advisor might have said, yes, I told you already that is wrong. But that financial advisor may have led them to believe that the answer was yes and convinced them that they could do it. And oh my gosh, the level of risk that they would have taken, they could have been completely devastated, possibly even wiped out if they had tried to do the plan according to what that financial advisor said they could. So it is so fantastic that I had a chance to meet them because I've been very excited to actually put this plan in motion, and we have more pieces to work on, but very exciting stuff. So remember what I said early on in this show. I turn the light on at the end of the retirement tunnel. It is on. It is there. You've got to meet the right person. You got to meet the right financial advisor who truly understands retirement income planning. And it doesn't happen in the typical Wall Street classically trained approach that I learned years ago. So there you go. Great stuff. I'm excited to be working with Paul and Katie. Paul and Katie, if you're listening, love the opportunity to help you do this. I'm so looking forward to the next 2 years. We got a lot of work to do, but let's just dig in. Can't wait to do it. Remember, the future belongs to those who take action. Take action, right? Don't sit on the sidelines waiting to get your financial house in order. Don't do it. Don't sit there worrying about money as your primary fear after government corruption. Do something about it. I'm an easy conversation. Go to personalpensionradio.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Kraig with a K, Kraig, Strom, Strom. Whatever you do, don't sit back and wait on this any longer. The future belongs to those who take action. I'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio podcast. We took notes for you, so if you missed any part of the show, you can find a full transcript of each episode at personalpensionradio.com. Be sure to download your free retirement income crisis report at personalpensionradio.com. While you're at it, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening. Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.